So, in what ways are you cultivating health in your family and with your kids to break harmful intergenerational messages? And so you've kind of touched a little bit
Yeah.
on this, but can you expand on that?
Yeah, this is something really cool that we've incorporated into our family. Um, we live in a we live in the country here in Oregon. We live in Sandy, which is probably like us and like 5 or 6 other black families that live in Sandy. But we
We're
love
like a
Sandy.
sore thumb out
Yeah,
there.
everybody knows us. Like, oh, Segura. Anyway, but our girls have had challenges with racism already.
Mm.
Like there was a boy that would call one of my daughters poop, or you look like this and this, that, and the third. And as a parent, reliving my own moments at their age, I'm like, oh my God, like I thought my kids would not have to go through this.
Yeah.
I thought we were further along. And so like as a dad, then having to step into these spaces, like advocating for my kids, but then doubling back to speak life and truth into my kids. That's something that we've been doing. So one thing, and if you're a parent watching this, like you could take this for what it is, but like we do this every night now. Because one of our daughters, our oldest, she was having struggles with like her hair, because all of our girls identify with hair. Like, I want my hair straightened like such and such, or why is my hair so curly? And then skin color, and then everything, just identity. And we're like, man, we need to try something. And so, my wife and I, after like we call sometimes intense fellowship, we're like, man, what do we do? I'm like, well, let's pray, and like let's try this tonight. So like we're not gonna do tablet time or anything like that. Like we're gonna be present, and we do this thing where each night we rotate a kid, and then we'll even do it too. And the kids got like this big old beanbag chair, and like we sit in it, and we call it the hot seat.
Oh, yep.
And they sit in it. Everybody has to go around and tell this person like what do they love about them.
Oh.
Not only like what do they see, but like character. And then our daughters, or even us, they'll have to say, I receive it and I believe it. And then after that, like we'll have them stand up, and then like now it's speed round. You got 1 minute to declare all of these things, like God's truths and what you believe about yourself in 1 minute. And at first, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. But then it's just coming, like, oh my gosh.
Really good.
And so like you could take that for what it is, like if you're a parent watching this, but
Yeah, no shame. Like if you're not doing that, it's
that's
okay.
something that we had to like in a moment of like, what do we do about this? Because we're clearly seeing like our children are struggling with their identity and being black.
But speaking truth,
And
though, for
speaking
them
truth
instead
and
of
wanting to
letting them-
rewrite the narrative of like, okay, how do we, through us processing our own trauma, incorporate like health for our kids, so that when they get older, like, nah, I know who I am. I know who God says I am. I know who I am. And whatever you're saying is not true.
Yeah.
And so
It just gives them a chance to reroute their thought process instead of leaving them in the truth, leaving them in the distortion.
Yes.
They're able to reroute. And so it's funny, we also do this thing too where I'm sure a lot of families do this. It's like the highs and lows of the day, but coupled with that, I think what it's doing is it's creating a authenticity in them to share what they love about people, even without us telling them.
Yeah.
Like my youngest will be like, Mom, I love your skin, out of the blue. Or Mom, I love your hair. And it will be right on time.
Yeah, right.
Right on time. Like, obviously I don't want that codependent relationship with my kids, like where I'm like, give me all the things, the words. But when it comes like naturally, because we've cultivated that in our house, those moments are like filled with gold.
Yeah.
Well, and that's I think something I realized is if we don't own, and this goes for any addiction story, if you don't own your story, then you're living out of fear. But once you've processed it and you're like, oh, I have this vulnerability, I have this weakness because of this trauma, you start working through it. And so even just watching my daughter go from where she was when I wrote that blog, hating herself, finding notes in her room, I hate myself, I wish I was white. It was so devastating to me because again, Emmanuel, I'm like, what the heck? It's like 30 years later, and my daughter's experiencing the same thing. And so, she experienced racism a couple weeks ago in her Christian program she was involved in.
Right.
And she read me the text that she sent to the kids, and I was like blown away. And so I've seen the 4 or 5 years of just saying, oh, look at that shade of black, that it's almost purple, it's so beautiful. And, you know, just bringing light and life to, and goodness to being black, and researching more and digging out the history books that have great stories about black girls, you know.
Yeah.
I've just seen it kind of morph her, and and listening to her tell her text and say, when you make these racist jokes, this is how it feels. And I'm sure you don't know how it feels to be the only one in the room a certain color and have everybody else teasing you, but it hurts me. So I'm going to not hang out with you if you guys continue to act like that. And I'm going to go hang out with people that make me feel good about myself. And I was so proud of her because 4 or 5 years ago, she's writing, I hate myself. I wish I was white. And now she's like, I am beautiful. This is ignorant. You don't know. And she's, you know, 13 years old. So I just see like we're changing stuff in our family just by being owning what we, you know, where we struggle, and then talking about that with our kid.
Yeah. This it makes me emotional talking about this specifically. I'm not gonna apologize for tears.
Don't.
But just our marriage and how God has worked through so much, like even like on the lens of race, like the stereotype of, oh, black people, probably the husband or the father is incarcerated, single black mom, that has kids and single parenting. And, you know, like for some of us, like my parents, I watched my mom sleep on the couch from the day, gosh, when I was 7 or 8 years old. And still to this day, even when my dad's passed away, like she still does that because my parents were so disconnected, and like her dad is no longer, like, not in the picture. But for us to be together and show affection with each other, and like we're together, we parent together, we love each other. Like I'm taking the kids to school, like and being insane. Like for me, this ministers to me. Like I'm in a white area, and like these little white kids, I wish I have a picture of, like jumping all over me, like Uncle Man, Uncle Man's here, and they're like, wait, there's a black dad with his daughters.
Yeah.
And there's other daughters like calling him Uncle Man. Like it blesses my soul, and just to be a part of rewriting people's story, like
rewriting
first impressions, like I know a black guy, I know a black couple, like they're married, they have a home, they're home, like we're the first homeowners in our families.
You're not druggies and gangbangers,
right? Like we're not whatever perception that you had, and like we're part of rewriting a narrative. I mean, we're one drop in a huge bucket, but it makes me emotional just thinking like, man, because of what God has done,
that's good.
Like we're not reliving the narratives that we have inherited for ourselves, and our kids get to see like their kids will not have to worry about what we've been through because they have both of us.